If God asked you if God came down and said you can ask him one question and he'll answer it right then and there, what would you ask him?
The problem with questions like this is I always pick at the question. Um, I'm not gonna answer that publicly. I know the question I would ask him, but it's, one of the things you learn as a pastor is filter. Because the question and because the que and this gets back to my point about reason first versus heart first. The question isn't a theoretical question. Theoretical questions are fine, they're fun, but they're not the questions I most deeply care about. The questions I most deeply care about are questions about people because I care more about people than I care about theory. And maybe that's the difference between a philosopher and a pastor. But I, and they would be questions the kind of question that would surprise no one. Why did why did this person do this or go in this direction instead of that direction? Because or why did this thing happen to this person, which seemed so painful and difficult and caused so much calamity? But I think in many ways I don't, if I pick apart the question, God doesn't have to come down; He's here. Um, God doesn't have to um, start talking because He never stops talking. And I think the answer to my question is is seen in Christ on the cross. Because at the heart of so many of these questions is the real doubt, the doubt that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Because Adam and Eve look at that tree and the serpent says, this answer you were given about this tree, I don't find it convincing. He's holding out on you. You can't really trust him. And that's the answer that's given at the cross. Because the answer to our deepest question, I think, of every human heart is, can we trust God? Because the questions I have about painful things happening or people taking different turns or 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 deeply held dreams and desires in my heart that are unfulfilled. I mean, those are the questions that, and then my question for God is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? And that answer was given at the cross. So, I know it sounds like a preacher answer. I get it, but I think, I don't I don't finally have a theoretical question for God. I finally have I have questions about the world and about things I see in the world, and I say, "Lord, would it have been so hard if only this had happened or these things had not happened?" And the answer I get from the cross is, "You have to trust me." Because I know that Christ's disciples, I mean, Tolkien calls it a eucatastrophe. I mean, because Jesus, I mean, you see it in the Gospels when they're going down to Jerusalem and Jesus says, and this is the thing, people are like, "Well, I wish I knew the future." Well, okay, Jesus says, "Okay, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna go to Jerusalem. I'm gonna be turned over into the hands of Gentiles. I'm gonna be killed." And right when he said that, all of their ears shut off. Because then he says, "And then I'll rise from the dead." And Sunday, Easter morning, they're not there with a cake saying, "Happy Easter, Jesus, welcome back." No, it's the women who are going there assuming he's still dead. And so, the question that is at the base of all of our lives that must be answered by our lives is, Do we trust him? Do we trust him with the world? Do we trust him with ourselves? And one of the things that the older you get, the more you care not so much about your own existence or your own creature comforts, or you see a lot of those things and it's like, those things come and go. The things you care about are your loved ones. And most fathers would far rather experience pain themselves than watch their children in pain, or experience, most good parents will, what won't good parents give in exchange for their children's blessedness? And so these are the kinds of questions. And so to me, that is the question. That is always the question. Everybody has their own particular answer to it. That's always the question.
Wow.